Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline from Kansas City is Matt Derrick, Kansas City Chiefs beat writer for ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, welcome to BYU Sports Nation.
Thanks a lot. It's great to talk to you guys.
We saw some big news featuring Tejan Karoma coming out of Kansas City over the weekend, that he had signed a free agent contract after making the most of his minicamp invite. What did Tejan Karoma do to earn a spot on the 90-man roster and impress the coaches?
Well, for the tryout players that come into a minicamp like this, the number one thing that they can do is just show hustle and commitment, and that's something that he's been known for. I mean, that's certainly, I think, what earned him the spot in the first place. The scouts that I've talked to about him have said that just that willingness to play. He goes to the final whistle every single time. He's a scrappy, grinding player. And that's what he's got to be able to do. He's a little undersized for the center position and everything, but the way that the Chiefs use their offensive linemen, they like guys who can move. The guys who can get out to the outside, because they like to do a lot of outside zone plays. They like to be able to have their offensive linemen be a little athletic. So even though his height may hurt him a little bit there, as far as just being one of these big guys up front, the fact that he has good footwork and he can move certainly plays into his advantage. And I think it's a good spot because, the Chiefs have Mitch Morse as their starting center, but they don't have any depth, at that position. They've got some guys who played the position, but, in a pinch, they don't really have someone who's been a true center in the past. And I think that's been a pretty good fit for him.
Matt, how much of a chance do you give Tejan to make at least the practice squad when the season starts?
I think you'd have to think at this point he has a pretty good chance. Obviously we'll have to see what happens once they get into OTAs and the training camp. But I think that would be his best shot, would be the practice squad. Going from just a tryout player to making the 53-man roster, that's difficult to do. It doesn't happen very often. But just getting your foot in the door and getting the chance, that's what you need. And like I said, the Chiefs do need some help there. And having someone who's got some experience would be a benefit to having around. And we also know that Andy Reid, loves young players from BYU. He's got obviously a soft spot there. He loves to give those kids a chance. And if they prove themselves like, Daniel Sorensen has, they're going to stick around.
How much of the playbook are guys like Tejan Karoma expected to know in just a few days?
Yeah, that's really tough because Andy Reid's known for having one of the thickest playbooks in the league when it comes to the offensive side, and they do try to simplify it quite a bit for the rookies and for minicamp and everything. But they still expect them to know what they've got and to get it down, and that was one of the things that during this minicamps can be a disaster. They really can. When you're bringing in 68 kids that haven't all played on the same team before and relatively inexperienced, there can be a lot of mistakes and sloppiness. With Andy Reid's group, they usually get them around pretty quickly, and you could tell certainly from day one to day three, how much these players retained and how they were able to operate. And by the third day, those offenses out there were looking pretty good.
3 of the 68 were BYU guys, Tejan Karoma mentioned. Handsome Taniello, Algernon Brown also among them, former BYU Cougars. How did Taniello and Brown fare?
Yeah, I thought Handsome had some really nice moments. He's a pretty big kid, one of those defensive line up front kids. And, I thought he had some flashes. He ran mostly on the second and third teams. He really impressed me at one point on some elevation. There was a throw in for the middle that he got up, jumped up, and got his hands on and knocked it away. I thought that was a pretty athletic move. Brown looked pretty good, too. A little bit of speed. They used him out of the backfield, catching passes quite a bit, and showed good hands there. That's one of the things you got to be able to do in this offense, and they certainly did a lot in the minicamp, was throwing to backs out of the backfield. And I thought it looked good. I think that both those players showed enough to merit another chance, and for maybe another team to take a look at him this weekend if they can get into another minicamp.
That certainly is the hope for the BYU guys. Matt Derrick, publisher of ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick, is with us on BYU Sports Nation. You brought up the name Daniel Sorensen. He's a beloved defensive guy, hard worker, shows up, goes to work, doesn't say much, just does what he's told. What kind of an impact has Daniel Sorensen had on the Kansas City Chiefs since he entered the franchise?
Well, you're talking about just one of the toughest guys in the league. He's afraid of absolutely nothing, and you're right. He's definitely one of these lunch pail players. He just goes in there, he works hard every day, and isn't afraid of anything. And, and he certainly has been one of these elements that has brought toughness to the team. That's something that they're trying to add more of. There's been some questions that maybe that, there's been a little lack of commitment in the last couple of seasons on the defensive side. Maybe they had some guys who weren't tough enough to be able to handle the grind of the season and going to the playoffs and everything, and that's what they want to instill into this defense. But Daniel Sorensen has that in spades. I mean, he's never afraid of anybody. He's willing to do all the dirty work that needs to be done in the secondary, and he does it better than almost anybody.
We met an actor on a photo shoot recently who was a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, and he referred to Daniel Sorensen as D Nasty. And I thought, Daniel Sorensen, really? And he's like, oh, he's one of the
Dirty Dan.
Yeah, Dirty Dan. Well,
yeah, Dirty Dan.
Has he really earned that reputation in Kansas City?
Well, it's one of those names that just plays against type, really, because you're right. I mean, off the field and talking to him, he's the most quiet, soft-spoken, nicest guy around. I mean, he does not like to talk to the media, and he's so shy and quiet, and he doesn't want to. But when we ask him to, he's always helpful and does what he can and everything. But I'll tell you what, on the football field, do not mess with him because he sticks up for his teammates. He plays all the way to the end. He picked up a couple of fines last year for a couple of little things on the field because like I said, he plays hard. I mean, he absolutely does. He plays at the very end, and he's not to be trifled with on the football field.
Is D Nasty Dirty Dan expected to be a starter this year, Matt?
I don't think that they want him in that role. I mean, really, where he plays his best is, as kind of an end-of-box safety. And, and the Chiefs have drafted another player, hybrid linebacker, that might share that responsibility. So, I think they really like him in that niche role. And, really that third safety role is really his best position. Not to say he can't start. I mean, he has. I mean, when they've had injuries, he's stepped up and he's been, he does have a nose for the football. So, I mean, he's had some nice plays. He had, a great interception last season on a deep pass. They just played absolutely perfectly. So he can do that, but they really like him in that third safety role, and the nickel and dime packages, which with the way the Chiefs play defense, I mean, they're in their sub packages probably 60% of the time. So he's still a pretty, integral role player.
We are speaking with the publisher of ChiefsDigest.com, Matt Derrick, on BYU Sports Nation. How is former Cougar Andy Reid, the head coach in KC, received by the local community?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this team wants this city and this franchise and their fan base. They want to win. So, whatever there's a disappointment in the playoffs, inevitably there's probably some finger pointing at the coach. But he's pretty beloved here. I mean, he really is. I mean, Andy does not take a whole lot of, I think, the blame for some of the things that have happened here as far as the playoff losses the last couple of seasons. There's always going to be frustration. There's going to be some things that complain. But, he just signed a contract extension last year, so he's going to be here for a while. And just looking at the accomplishments, I mean, this is a franchise that it's had some pretty good success in the past, but never won back-to-back division titles until the last two seasons. Playoffs for the last 5 years. That's a streak that has not been matched in franchise history. He just simply wins games, and I'll tell you what, with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback now, you kind of see a little glit in the eye. I mean, you see a bounce in the step. I think he's really excited, about the prospect of having this new toy that he can play with and, figuring out some things to do with the Mahomes, because Mahomes has an incredible arm, and you can kind of see Reid really wants to see how he can put his stamp on the offense.
Matt, great to talk to you. Thanks for the insider's edge from the Chiefs.
Absolutely. Great talking to you.
Matt Derrick, Kansas City Chiefs beat writer from ChiefsDigest.com on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future.